Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and today we're going to have a look at the various models for the cold weather that we could be seeing next week. Now in yesterday's video I highlighted the GFS, which really was not going along with the other models, and it's kind of remained the same today. The 12 o'clock one however has trended colder. It's not going fully sort of beast from the east as some other models are going and have been going, but it is trending colder, and the ensemble members of the GFS are still really bizarre. The GFS ensembles are about 5 degrees warmer than the ECMWF ensembles. So yeah, we'll have a look at the GFS, the ECMWF and the GEM ensembles towards the end of the video. It's looking like, with the pattern we're going to see, that we could be seeing quite cold and snowy weather. But at the moment, with the patterns we're seeing, there's a chance it could be very disappointing, or it could be very, very good. We'll run through the GFS, and it will show you a potentially a little bit milder outcome, but it's still generally following a very similar pattern. As we run through, we've got these areas of low pressure that are potentially bringing some big snow for Scotland, and then with this low, it's really troublesome. Because what happens is, it lingers over the top of the country and starts to bring in easterly winds. Now we've got this other area of low pressure coming in across the Atlantic, but with the southerly tracking jet stream. And this is going to give energy to that other area of low pressure, so it drifts further north again, introducing milder air. A lot of the other ensemble members, especially in the ECMWF and other models, are not forecasting this low pressure to be as deep, forecasting this lower pressure to be further south, and we're pulling in very cold easterly winds. Now today I'm on Meteo Seal, not Weather Central, as it does highlight the air masses are a lot better. We'll only really look out to 192 hours, because beyond that really, if we have a look at what we've had at the moment, it's very, very uncertain. So we won't look too far out, but if we go to 192 hours, you can see we do pull in easterly winds, especially further north. But for the south, this low just really doesn't clear away, so we unfortunately don't get the bitterly cold air further south. But when we do see the cold air with these areas of low pressure running up against it, it could provide significant snow. But at the moment, I'm worried that that snow line might be too far north for many parts of England. If we have a look at the 850 HPA temperatures, you can see very cold air is lurking to our northeast. And as we head through, we were so close to pulling it in. It's just out in the North Sea on this GFS run. It is reaching parts of Scotland before the low pressure pushes further north again and sweeps it away. And by the end of the run, we're still very close to this cold air, so it wouldn't make too much of a switch in the model to bring in these bitterly cold temperatures. So yeah, it would provide a lot of snow for Scotland. This very, very snowy in Scotland. But further southwards, with this current GFS run, it'll be cool, but most likely with cold rain, with maybe some sleetiness or snow over hills. If we have a look at the thickness and the 0 degree line, you can see bitterly cold air just to our northeast. And as we move through towards early next week, we're so close to pulling in the 528 line for the whole of the UK, but it really only engulfs Scotland, Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England. And there's a steep gradient to much warmer air and milder air towards the continent. Beyond that, you can see we're so close to pulling that in before what milder air tries to come in from next week. So yeah, I think this is really symbolic that the GFS is not going for as much blocking as some other models are going for. Now we'll have a look at the GEM model, which is forecasting quite cold and has done for its last few runs. It's been pretty consistent over the last couple of days. So I'm really hoping that something like the GEM or the ECMWF is right, as it's been consistent, unlike the GFS, and has been forecasting this sort of cold easterly to varying degrees of severity, but still a cold easterly for the past few days. As you can see, that low does clear out into the continent, and we do start to pull in that bitterly cold easterly wind. You see the glow clears all the way down to sort of Italy and the Alps, and this area of low pressure hangs out in the Atlantic, and they don't join and provide those southwesterly winds. We're pulling in bitterly cold air from the east, and that blocking is sustained even more, and then that low tries to push in from the south and almost stalls over the top of the country, and that would provide a big snow event potentially there. Beyond that, it does look like the blocking's breaking down, so it's likely to go a bit milder. But again, I really wouldn't look anything beyond about 7 days, 7 or 8 days at the moment, as anything towards the end of these runs is very, very uncertain, considering we can't even nail down what's going to happen in 5 days' time, let alone 10 days. If we have a look at the upper air conditions, you can see very cold airs to our northeast, and it does start to encroach on the UK, and it engulfs near enough the whole UK. Doesn't quite get all the way down to the southwest, but the southwest still sees about -4, -5, 850 HPA, which would allow the potential for some snow. But again, it would probably be a bit marginal down there. But you can see the -12 line gets in Scotland, Northern England, East Anglia, into parts of Southeast England, and engulfs a lot of the country before low pressure tries to sweep it away. And unfortunately, this GEM run, it does sweep a lot of the colder air away towards the end of next week. But we're sitting in this bitterly cold air from about Sunday all the way to about Wednesday, Thursday, when low pressure tries to move in and will probably provide a big snow event on its leading edge. So again, GM is showing very cold conditions that would be piling in snow showers and would have spans of snow coming up from the south where we have this milder air, and its northern edge would fall as snow. So yeah, very interesting condition from the GM there. That would be quite a snowy and very cold outcome. Now, if we have a look at the ECMWF, which we've really been looking at, especially this evening, to see if it is backing up the easterly wind that it forecasted midnight last night. It was forecast at 0 o'clock midnight run was bitterly cold. It was a proper beast from the east. It had the -10 line through for about 5 days straight for the whole country. Now, the midday run is not as extreme, but the pattern is still very similar. So it's still showing confidence that we're seeing that easterly wind. You can see as we move through that low, heads out into the continent, and we start to pull in at bitterly cold easterly wind. And you can see these areas of low pressure are much further southward, so not providing those milder temperatures. You can see this low here is not allowing the bitterly cold air to get exactly into the southeast. However, we're giving up some of the cold air for an area of low pressure, which would provide precipitation. Now, it's looking like if we have we'll look at the upper airs in a minute, but it's looking like that could be quite a big snow event if that came off next Tuesday. Beyond that, the Atlantic tries to build back in, and it could be another snowy breakdown. But again, I really wouldn't look anything beyond about 7 or 8 days at the moment. If we have a look at the upper air temperatures, you can see very cold airs to our northeast and east, and then as we head into Sunday, bitterly cold air engulfs the whole of the country. And then on Tuesday, we have that little area of low pressure. And you can see sort of -6 is through the UK, parts of England, maybe going a bit milder. But in there, it's still going to be quite cold, and the thickness levels are probably going to be quite cold. And it could provide, on its northern and western edge, could provide some big snow for Midlands, Southern England, Southeast England, East Anglia, etc. So we are giving up some of this colder air for the higher chance of more sustained cold condition, sustained snow. So yeah, but again, it is showing very similar pattern, getting that very cold air through the whole country. And unfortunately, the ensembles don't come out until later tonight. But it'd be very interesting to see whether this is a milder solution for sort of the south, or is in the middle of the pack, or perhaps the ECM has flipped. But I very much doubt that has occurred. Beyond that, it remains very cold, and that cold air does engulf the country again as that low moves away. Whole country gets under the -8, parts of -10 line coming through as well. That would allow snow even for parts of the southwest as well. You see -6, -8 line getting through. Beyond that, the Atlantic tries to build back in, and it does bring milder air in and can provide a big snow event there, potentially on its leading edge. Next, we'll have a look at the UK Met Office run, which again is a highly remarked model, so it's one of the big models you really want to get on board, and it is still on board with those easterly winds. In fact, I'd probably say it's better than some of the other models for its general pattern. As we move through, you see that low slips out into the near continent, and we start to pull in those bitterly cold easterly winds. Beyond that, the area of low pressure sort of stays out in the Atlantic until on on Monday, and it would have weather fronts, and it would be coming against this bitterly cold air. And if we put on the temperature 850 HPA, you can see as we run through, bitterly cold air engulfs the whole of the UK, and those weather fronts coming up against that cold. Not only would we have snow showers, but we'd have this weather front which would be providing some big snow for central areas, southern areas, northern areas. Fortunately, the southwest may be missing out with this, but definitely in eastern areas, very cold conditions still on the UK Met Office run, and given those very cold easterly winds, some dense cold air, I suspect it may hang around for longer than it currently is showing, and these weather fronts won't make a lot of progress. One thing the models do struggle with is the breakdown of blocking, as they do like to break down blocking prematurely. So that's why I'm saying don't look anything really beyond about the 7 or 8 day time frame at the moment. If we have a look at the icon model, which again has been in tune with the other models in providing easterly winds, it maintains its theme this evening, and you can see that low. It does take a bit of time to clear, but it does eventually into the near continent, and it does pull in those easterly winds. Now again, we've got those weather fronts that are going to be trying to push in from the west and could provide some big snow. But as you see with this icon model, that area of low pressure sort of fizzles out as it comes up against the cold air. That would be an optimum scenario for heavy snow for some areas, and beyond that, the cold air sort of maintains, and this area of low pressure is diving further southwards and is likely to bring up milder air on this current run in about a day or two time, but before that we'll have some very cold conditions. If we have a look at the upper air conditions, you can see very cold air to our northeast, then it engulfs the whole of the UK as that low cleared southwards, not initially easterly winds, it's northerly winds initially, colder air engulfing the whole UK, before easterly winds start to come in. Bitterly cold air arrives in the east, and you can see it's a very high gradient in cold. In terms of cold, you see the 0 degree line is getting through the southwest, and then the minus 10 degree line is getting through parts of East Anglia and East England. So the icon model is showing a very strong gradient from very mild conditions to very bitterly cold conditions, and that could provide where we see that line between maybe -4, -5, that sort of region there, strung across. We could see some big snow totals. Beyond that, you see that low slips to the south, and colder air comes in and sinks back southwards. Again, I wouldn't take the position of each of these sort of cold contours literally. They could be slightly different, but it's the general pattern of low pressure struggling to get through the cold air, which is very encouraging to see from the icon model. Again, GFS not really showing this. It's showing colder air getting in, but then being easily swept away. So yeah, very interesting conditions with that. So we'll have a look at the GFS ensembles now, and you can really see how a lot of the models I just showed you were getting down to sort of -10, -8 degrees, but the GFS ensembles, including the operational run, are performing very poorly, going around -5. I can't see how that's happening. I'll be very interesting to see if it does flip to cold in the next couple runs. I very much suspect in the next couple model runs, so by this time tomorrow, for my video tomorrow, I suspect the GFS, it will have decided exactly what's going to happen, near enough, the pattern at least, and all the models will agree. Now I suspect if the GFS does suddenly flip to cold, and it goes along with what the ECMWF, the GM, the icon have been showing, I very much think it's probably a flaw that we're seeing in the actual GFS model. With all the blocking around, sudden stratospheric warmings, I suspect that the pattern we've built up perhaps has found a flaw within the GFS computer model, considering all the other models are showing very different results. Now I know it's very marginal, but considering it's the GFS and its ensembles are generally going a lot milder than many of the other ensembles and operational models. I very much expect it's probably something within the GFS actual algorithm and model that it's struggling to resolve this. So yeah, I wouldn't look too much into the GFS. Longer term, it's going to around average again, but again, you can't discount some of these cold ensemble members, because remember, the models love to break down blocking prematurely, so you can't rule out it having another stab at very cold conditions into the middle of February. And even this cold spell could span longer than the 3 or 4 days we're looking at the moment. We'll also have a look at the GEM, and this is why I say the GFS is bizarrely wrong. As you have a look at the GEM, the average gets down to -8, maybe even -9 degrees. Again, there are less GEM ensemble members, but you can see about half of them are getting down to the average or below, and you see 3 or 4 of them are going proper bitterly cold, including the operational run, which is going very cold in there as well. But it's not an outlier within its ensembles. It's towards the colder end, but it's definitely not an outlier. There are some other milder outliers, but generally most of the ensemble members are getting well below the -5, getting down to -7, -8 degrees. And it just really shows you that the GFS is really they're working in completely different. They're almost looking at completely different places. Considering this far off in the ensemble spread, the most mild GM ensembles are going for the average and the GFS. So I don't quite understand that. And even if we have a look at the midnight run, and you'd say, oh, maybe the GM is spotted earlier, and the GFS is going to flip over. The GFS has been consistent with it being that mild in the last couple of days, and the GM has been consistent with it being that cold. You can see many ensemble members going down to the -10, including the operational run, and we did have these bit milder outliers that would fit in on the GFS ensembles. But as we flip over to the midday run, you can see those ensemble members have gone colder. So it suggests that the GM is starting to resolve, and suggests that those are not viable options. So yeah, it's very, very difficult to see how that GFS comes off, considering all the other factors that are against it. Finally, we'll have a look at the ECMWF ensembles. Now, I don't normally show this because it is released for the midday run at about 9 or 10 p.m, so later than I would do this video. But I'm looking at the midnight run from last night, where we had the very, very cold operational run. Now, it went very sustained cold, but you can see up until maybe the 9th, 10th, it's not an outlier. It was actually following the ensemble trend. The ensemble mean is getting down to -10, so similar to the GM, exceptionally. So it's just showing you that both the GM and the ECM ensembles are going very cold for sort of the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th of February for London. Now, the most mild ECMWF runs are going to around -5, and maybe a bit colder than that, towards the 8th, 9th, whereas the GFS average is -5. So it's like it is again like they are looking at completely different places. It's totally bizarre what's going on. But given the ECM ensembles agree with the GM ensembles, agree with the Icon, the UK Met, I really do suspect that the GFS is the issue here. But again, you can't discount it though. I can't say it's definitely not going to happen. I'm just going to say it's very unlikely to happen, just considering what we've been looking at the last couple of days. It must resolve in the next day or two. It has to, or we will be a couple of days out and not have a clue what's happening. It's going to flip, whether it's the 6 o'clock run tonight in the GFS, whether it's the midnight run, or whether it's one of the 6 o'clock or 12Z tomorrow. I suspect within the next 4 or 5 runs, we will see the GFS finally decide finally see if the GFS is right, which I hope is unlikely, and I suspect is unlikely, or the GFS gets shown up and it flips to what the other ensemble members are showing. So yeah, very interesting forecasting with this. I would really not want to be I really wouldn't want to be a professional forecaster right now, a meteorologist at the Met Office. I really would not want to be having to issue weather warnings, etc. for this. As on the Met Office app right now, for London, where I am, it's forecasting 1 degree with snow on Monday. Now, if you have a look at the GFS runs, you can see the GFS are going for around 4 or 5, 6 degrees in the day with rain. So yeah, that is very difficult, and they're mainly going off the UK Met and the ECMWF runs, which are showing that very cold conditions. So yeah, very difficult forecasting, and hopefully it does get resolved within the next day or two. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to you, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Hopefully, a resolution to these issues.